Congratulations, you've been chosen to teach summer school.
Be quiet and pay attention.
We can't learn our ways.
Oh, I'm not a real teacher.
I have had it with this school, Skinner.
That's all right. These aren't real students, though.
Hello and welcome to the Dune Minute Podcast, where this time it's summer school, baby. I'm one of your hosts, John.
And I am Zach.
And we are back. Over the next couple months, we're going to be spending some time talking about some of our favorite topics just in the universe as a whole. These are things that didn't really fit into specific minutes in the Dune Minute. These didn't fit directly into, they kind of might have fit somewhat directly without us going off into crazy tangents into Dune prophecy. But this is really our time that we wanted to do to just nerd out about Dune stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about some pretty larger, more nebulous things over the next couple months. And today is probably the episode I've been most looking forward to. Honestly, something that we've been talking about since we were first coming up with the idea of doing the Dune Minute podcast. Yeah. We're talking about Holtzman.
We were talking about Holtzman. I remember sitting at the bar and explaining to you what Holtzman was a few years back, because it's not really mentioned in any of the books or the movies or anything. And it's definitely an extended lore thing. And I
think he's mentioned in Chapter House.
Yeah.
And I didn't read Chapter House as a teenager. So yeah.
So this is definitely a really cool topic, and I'm excited to shed some light on it because I don't know if you know this, John, but Holtzman's pretty fucking important.
Arguably the most important character in the entire universe. I would go so far as to say more important than Paul.
Okay.
But, that it's up for debate.
Definitely. I don't know. I was about to say maybe he had a larger impact, but a jihad killing tens of millions is a pretty large impact.
Billions, actually.
Billions and billions. Pretty large impact. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe not more important than Paul, but top 3 most important people in this entire universe.
People? Question mark?
Worms?
Computers?
Huh? All right. Well, we're going to have a lot to talk about. And so it's fair to say that we're going to be spending a lot of this podcast talking about and referencing from the Dune Encyclopedia. Yep. During the minutes, we've often talked about and praised all of the work that went into the Dune Encyclopedia for clarifying a lot of things that Frank just never bothered to. I think the clarifications around Holtzman are some of the most important entries because, as we'll talk about, the dude laid the groundwork for civilization to continue to exist, basically.
Yeah. And before we get too far away from it, just want to say that the encyclopedia is where most of the summer school content is going to be coming from. So if you have a copy, you're one of the lucky few. If you don't have a physical copy, there are some around online. So it's a very, very, very cool book. It's a great addition to any kind of Dune literature collection that you have. So I'm fortunate enough to have a hardback copy that I found for a really, really good deal a couple years back. So you may hear some pages turning as we're recording. So I'm just going to be leafing through this to make sure we don't miss any of the good bits.
Aggressively flipping back and forth through pages.
Right. I will say a good portion of the Dune wiki that's online is pulled from the Dune Encyclopedia. So if you've ever browsed around the Dune wiki, odds are you've read some of the content from the Dune Encyclopedia already.
All right. I think that's enough time for, dilly-dallying. Let's get into it, man.
Let's talk about Holtzman.
Let's talk about my boy, Ibrahim von Holtzman.
Ibrahim von Holtzman.
Now, this is von, V-A-U-G-H-N, not V-O-N.
Right. He's not of the Holtzman.
It doesn't really matter as far as, I guess, listening to this podcast is concerned, but, he's not a vampire of some sort.
Sure. Ibrahim von Holtzman. He was born in 7,593 before Guild on the planet of Liesco 2 during the Great Dark Ages.
Yep.
Now, did you have any idea what the Great Dark Ages were?
So preliminary understanding, which is basically humanity made it to space.
Mm-hmm.
And then because we as if like
The royal we.
yeah, the royal we, as if, we basically lost the ability to communicate over long distances as different, groups of humans separated across different systems and everything. They essentially became isolated. Humans in their own systems are able to communicate with each other, but inter-system communication, galactic communication just doesn't exist at this point.
Any kind of messages had to be carried on a ship.
Yeah.
So
like we're back to Pony Express times, baby.
Pretty much. So if you can imagine sending a ship to Mars from Earth today, that takes a considerable amount of time.
Yep. And
the distances that we're talking about in this future world are orders of magnitude higher than that. So it is, communication is really the barrier that humans have encountered, and we've not really been able to figure that out up until this point. So that this span of time, that's what we're referring to when we say the Great Dark Ages. Now, Holtzman was the son of a planetary governor on Liesco 2. And aside from being a mathematical genius, he's a
fucking nerd.
He was like the nerd jock convergence, a Kwisatz Haderach of his own right. Aside from being a mathematical genius, he was a avid ornithopter racing pilot.
Just like Leto the First, minus the mathematical genius part.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
He just really wanted to be a pilot. He didn't want to be a duke.
We don't know a whole lot about the youth of Holtzman. His story really picks up at a kind of a defining, or not even kind of a defining, the defining moment of his life, where he is almost killed in an ornithopter racing incident in 7,565 BG when he's 28 years old.
I don't care about Holtzman. I just want to know, did the heart mollusks make it?
Probably not, and I'll have a note on that in a little bit.
Fuck!
I don't know if you if you thought that heart mollusks were going to come up in this episode, but they will.
We're talking about a lot of different things in this episode.
So after this ornithopter racing accident, this is when he went through his first brain transplant. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, and this is where the encyclopedia really just kind of lays out a lot of things very quickly, and they do it so like nonchalantly as they're talking about it. So,
well, on that note, I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to talk just a little bit about this entry in the encyclopedia first, and we will get back to Holtzman just 1 second. But so the Holtzman entry and the Holtzman effect entry, which we'll get to much later, was written by a guy named Wesley Ives.
Okay.
Wesley D. Ives. So WDI is the initials after the end of this entry. I could not find much of anything about him as an author. The notes that I've found say that, this encyclopedia was a kind of like a conglomeration of a bunch of different articles written by various academics and sci-fi authors and whatnot. Ives also wrote the entry for heart mollusks and the ornithopters. So technically we have, like, because that is like a semi-canon thing, we have him to thank for that.
All right. So then we run into, speaking about the authors of the Dune Encyclopedia, we get into the weirdness of the encyclopedia itself, because the encyclopedia is presented to you, the reader, as here's a collection of all this shit that was, written down thousands of years, not only after the death of Paul, but after the death of Leto II. Mm-hmm. So is Wesley D. Ives, first of all, a real person, or is this a in-universe author that had contributed to the quote unquote collection that we have here?
I think he's a real person.
Okay.
But then again, I can't really find much information about him. So.
So, like, Frank obviously leaves a lot of things to the imagination. And then the book that is there to clarify the things that are left to the imagination, in turn, leaves things to the imagination.
Yeah. It's layers, man.
Yeah.
It's fictions within fictions within fictions. Okay, sorry. I just want to take that little detour to talk about we owe a lot of weirdness to Wes D. Ives.
Our fiction is measured in millennia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So the ornithopter accident and brain transplant. Let's talk a little bit about that. So the Dune Encyclopedia lets us know that Holtzman's brain was extracted and placed in an experimental prototype axolotl tank.
Right.
Which in and of itself is very interesting because axolotl tanks are a hallmark of the Beni Tlaxu. What the fuck are axolotl tanks doing 8,000 years ahead of their time? We don't know. I'm not arguing with it at this point.
And again, this could be something that if we're talking in-universe explanations, this could be something that was wrong. That the historians, the quote unquote historians that are compiling this document in the Dune universe, this could be information that they got wrong.
Or it's just they didn't have any other word for it. So they just said, fuck it, it's an axolotl tank.
So we both have our handfuls of salt that we're taking this this information as truth.
Yeah. The Dune Encyclopedia, I think a handful of salt is the best way to approach it, because while it does provide a lot of concrete information, the authors are sometimes
unreliable narrators.
Yeah. I don't think you can take word as gospel exactly.
Yeah.
But Holtzman's brain is placed in an experimental prototype axolotl tank and linked to a host computer with a blank personality matrix. So basically they said, hopefully this works.
Yeah. It's like, this body is trash at this point. We can save the brain.
Trash.
Here is a computer with a blank hard drive. And we're just going to upload his brain to this computer.
Let's hope it works.
Yep.
It did, with some side effects.
Sure.
So do you want to talk about good side effects first or bad side effects?
Let's get the bad out of the way.
Okay. Holtzman became incredibly psychotic and paranoid and basically refused the treatment in his own way. Because he was the first brain transplant, there was no real idea of what he would be capable of. And in addition to his intense psychosis and paranoia and that refusal of treatment, Holtzman also became capable of orders of magnitude of 10 to 30 times his normal thinking capacity and power.
He was already a genius.
Yeah. And the dude was already one of the smartest mathematicians. So I forget what that movie was where
the Adderall ad. Limitless? You're talking about Limitless?
The one where Morgan Freeman's like, what if we used 100% of our brain?
Yeah, Limitless.
Yeah.
The 90-minute Adderall ad.
Yeah. Maybe that's what was in the axolotl tank. It was just a shitload of ADHD medication.
Could be.
Just hyper concentrated Adderall.
So he basically becomes a hybrid, or he's a machine at this point, a thinking machine.
Yeah.
But the thinking portion is based off of his own brain.
Yeah. He needs no sleep or food. He literally just gets to think all the time at insane speeds.
Nice.
So
I feel like I do that now, but it's not good.
I do that when I spiral a little bit sometimes, and I'm just way overthinking the most minute shit in my life.
I don't need food or sleep at that point either. I'm only thinking.
What did I say that one episode? I'm a fucking terrarium of
anxiety.
Yeah.
Callbacks. Listen to the minutes. You'll get that joke.
Listen to the minutes. So Holtzman kind of going off the deep end, but also gets incredible brain powers.
Yeah.
Super mega mind kind of shit.
And I think it's important to note that no one knew what was going to happen at this point. Like they were just throwing a dart in a black room.
The scientists of Liesco 2, at least from the little information that we have, was a fairly large community. So it would make sense that they would just be willing to throw whatever resources they had to try and save the governor's son. Mm-hmm. But he was one of the first, if not the first, brain transplants. So this is entirely uncharted territory over here.
This is a small but embarrassing story. I remember when we, in a high school science class, we were learning about organ transplants.
Yeah.
And I asked in earnest, had there ever been a brain transplant?
God, you're so fucking stupid.
And the teacher just looked at me and bless him, just went, no.
Huh?
No, Zach, that's not how that works. So Holtzman, his brain is in the computer. He's thinking a whole lot. And I don't think it's very much time at all before he says, I got to get the hell out of here.
I've had enough of this shit.
Yep. He's still kind of confined to the hospital. Or lab or whatever you want to call it.
I was going to say, what does that look like? Because he doesn't have a body. And do they just have this hard drive just sitting in a hospital bed?
I'm thinking like it's an IBM Watson situation where he's just a giant computer, like sitting in the corner.
Just in a sterile room.
Yeah, exactly. So he starts finding ways to escape from this lab.
Yeah.
And he kind of hacks his way into certain systems. And I think this is so funny. He orders the production of a custom ship.
Yeah, and he does it under the credentials of someone like high up in Liesco's military, so it doesn't look out of the ordinary or anything like that, which...
it was the chief engineer of House Holtzman.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, if the chief engineer of House Holtzman is requesting a custom ship or whatever...
No one's going to bat an eye at that.
Yeah. All right, cool. So peeling back the curtain and stepping away from Dune for a second, I work in information security. This is phishing 101. like this is hacking.
Yeah.
You get someone's credentials and you do shit with those credentials. You're not supposed to this is it. And the whole shit you see in movies where someone's like, I'm hacking into that's not how that works. Hacking is I'm going to send an email and then you click on the bad link and then I get your shit.
Yep. You mean there aren't mainframes to hack into nowadays?
I mean,
sometimes. And this book was, the encyclopedia is written in the mid 80s. So this was kind of a burgeoning field. Yep. Information security and all that stuff.
Well, information security had been around, but their understanding of computers back in the 80s was nowhere near what we have now in terms of infrastructure and everything.
Yeah, I've seen War Games. I know how it works.
Yeah. Great movie. I love War Games.
So he gets his own ship made and it is delivered to the hospital. He forges his own discharge papers.
Yep.
And he basically puts himself into the computer that is in the ship.
Well, we don't know how he gets into the computer that's in the ship, but he gets there. He somehow gets there, and then hacks himself into air traffic control's takeoff queue, and then just yeets himself into space.
If I may, I want to read this sentence directly from the encyclopedia. It says, finally, when the assembly that was Holtzman was placed aboard the odd new ship and connected directly to its systems, no one thought it odd that takeoff clearances arrived in the tower so promptly, or that the scheduling computer fed Holtzman into the takeoff line ahead of other waiting ships. So dude just, breaks out of this hospital.
This is some real Catch Me If You Can shit.
Yeah, it really is.
Or Gone in 60 Seconds shit.
So he's free. He's free now. And what does he do?
He just sends himself into a cometary orbit and says, fuck y'all, I'm leaving. I need to go think.
Yep.
That's basic. That is almost exactly how he sees himself, or how he
spends the rest of his life pretty much.
Yeah, but that's basically what he says to Liesco as he's leaving, because he's basically just like, nah, I'm out of here. I just need some quiet time for myself.
It's not you, it's me. I need some space. I need some time to think.
Yeah.
Just get my life together.
Also, over the course of the next few years, I'm going to be fucking with your communications and copying shit from your data stores to then put onto my machine, so I can think about that stuff as well.
Yeah. So he enters this cometary orbit in 7,556 BG, and it allows him 9 years of isolated thought. And exactly what you said, over that time, he's like, when he gets close to one of the planets in the system, they start noticing like data being extracted from their systems and copied off. He's copying all their computer information, so he has material to rifle through, and metaphorically speaking, and to think about.
No, there's actually a tiny little brain worm with a Rolodex that's just spinning the stuff the whole time.
So when he gets back, though, so this is really going to be kind of the theme of Holtzman's life for the rest of his life. He comes around the system. He spends a lot of time thinking when he's not around Liesco. When he comes back, he does his own little data dump and gifts people with an immense knowledge.
And then just pieces the fuck out.
Yeah. So the first time he does this, after this 9 years of isolated thought, when he comes back into to range, he gives them the gift of suspensor nullification effect, or at least a lot more advanced research that they have not been able to do with the suspensor nullification effect. Yeah.
Over the course of, I want to say it's like 6 years, Holtzman learns more about suspensor nullification than all of humanity over the past 50 centuries.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is a long fucking time.
Yeah.
So homie is thinking hard.
Yeah. So the suspensor nullification effect is something that humanity had already discovered at this point.
Yep.
It's what allows, interstellar space travel, and we'll talk a lot more about the specifics on that here in a bit. But yeah, he came in and said, you don't even know the half of it.
Yeah. And then on his way out, he starts mocking Liesco too, again, because he's an asshole. And he's basically, talking, and I'm quoting from the encyclopedia here, an amalgam of random accusations. And, at first, Holtzman is transmitting all of his thoughts through Holtzman waves as to not disclose his exact location, because as we talked about earlier, he's fucking psychotic and paranoid. So he doesn't want people like messing with him.
Yeah.
And all these messages were then directly pushed from the planetary mass of Liesco 2 itself. So much so that it became concerning, obviously, to the governor of Liesco 2, his father, and all of his advisors, but was like super exciting to the scientific community.
Mm-hmm.
And the governor basically came to a realization that, oh shit, like, this is my son, a fucking asshole. We can't just let him run free. We either have to like destroy him or contain him somehow.
Yeah.
So he basically puts a call out to pilots on Liesco, or I guess maybe not pilots, but like the military of Liesco to like start searching for this, what they call Mad Holtzman ship.
Bring him to justice.
Yeah, they need to, get rid of him. In 7556 BG, Liesco's patrol ships do locate the vessel. They get a radar image of it. And immediately 2 fighters join the scout ship.
Mm-hmm.
They begin chasing Holtzman down, and Holtzman doesn't want any of this. Yeah. he just wants to sit and think and come up with his own theories and whatnot. So what does he do? Like any ship under attack, he puts out an SOS. But Holtzman puts out an SOS through light speed communication.
Yeah.
Instant communication to the 6 nearest systems.
Yep.
And basically he says, and quoting from the encyclopedia here, I have developed an instantaneous interstellar communication device which Governor Holtzman of Liesco is attempting to keep for himself. If you rescue me, I will share this knowledge with you.
Yeah.
If there isn't a bigger reward for anyone to help someone in this time during the Great Dark Ages, it is, I will give you the ability to communicate instantly.
Yep. Across
systems.
Yeah. That's crazy. Because this is what's been holding him back. So this is, he's giving them the piece to say, hey, I have what can advance humanity.
Yep. And having, I don't know if I think Holtzman waves are FTL.
Yeah, they are.
So having FTL communication is the biggest reward. Of the 6 systems that Holtzman contacts, 5 immediately respond.
Yep.
And immediately come to his aid. Or say that they're going to come to his aid. Obviously, they're far away. They're going to take some time.
But he sends the word out. He gives them the ability for instantaneous interstellar communication. So
yep,
humanity has taken that first little leap.
Unfortunately, they are not there to save him in time because Holtzman gets hit with these long range attacks. It blows apart the stern of his ship and basically sends him tumbling in space.
Yeah.
He's in an uncontrolled erratic orbit. And Holtzman calculates that because of this orbit, he's going to be unable to sustain himself with his solar panels for, maintaining the intense amount of energy that's needed for his ship. So what does he do? He just blasts out all the information for creating Holtzman wave transmitters to all nearby systems.
Yep.
Sets a subroutine to basically shut himself off and then turn himself back on once he gets back into a orbit around a nearby or around Liesco's star to, give him power, and goes and takes a nap.
Yep.
So yeah, this erratic orbit is a massive, what I would assume just cometary orbit, where it's a huge elliptical orbit. It's 1800 and change years.
Yeah.
But if we're going off of Mentat rules, 1862 years. Don't know the exact number of days because we're not given that amount of detail.
Yeah. Which is, hell, that's a long, long, long time, man.
Yeah.
So, he's a computer. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He'll be around as long as he doesn't get damaged.
He shuts himself down and then he turns himself back on as if nothing had happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So very little passage of time will happen for him.
Yep.
But the next time he gets to Liesco, and
his dad's going to be dead.
Oh yeah. Everything's
changed. Dead.
Yeah. So, I think we should spend the next little bit of time talking about the 4 or 5 different returns that he has to Liesco.
Yep.
Each one of them 1862 years apart.
Yep. And our second return, if you can do some math, is 5694 BG.
So the second return. So the first return, we get instantaneous interstellar communication. And after he dumped that information out, humanity had 1,862 years to do what they will with this. So, there's clearly going to be some kind of developments, whether they're good or bad.
Hopefully there's going to be some kind of development.
Hopefully. What this caused is referred to as the reunification wars, or the wars of reunification.
Yep.
So we were now able to communicate with star systems. It brought us closer together very quickly, and that typically does not end well with humanity.
No.
So it's not great. what happens afterwards. In the grand scheme of things, it is definitely good for humanity that we were able to do this.
Sure.
But in the short term, it caused a lot of war and damage.
Well, when you have all these isolated systems for however many thousands of years they had been isolated, and then there's a sudden massive power vacuum where everyone's trying to fill it and become the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you are definitely going to have some conflict there.
Yeah.
And Holtzman recognized this conflict, and
he returns it kind of in the middle of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He returns, recognizes the conflict, and shuts the fuck up.
He's like, I'm not going to get out of the car for this one. I'm just going to...
We're going to lock the doors. Yeah, keep on driving.
Keep on rolling. I'll make some necessary repairs, and which is what he does. He makes some repairs while he's around the solar energy of Liesko's sun, but does not share anything with the groups because they've got their own stuff going on right now. He doesn't really need to get in the middle of it.
Because once again, he's fucking paranoid.
Yeah, exactly. So he sets off again after he gets these repairs done for another 1,862 years.
Third return is in, if you can do some math, 3832 BG.
That's right.
This time, Liesko is not the world that he knew.
No.
Liesko 2 has been transformed into a prison world.
Mm-hmm.
Not unlike some other planets that we know that were once heavily populated, thriving planets that became shitholes.
So when he gets there,
Salusa Secundus. Yeah, that's the one.
I was like, why are you being cagey about that? We know.
Yeah.
So when he gets here, he gets back. Liesko is a prison planet, and he sends a brief message down to the planet and the computers that are running this planet. Which, if prison planet wasn't already bad enough, this is a prison planet run by AI.
Run by AI from space, because they're satellites that are orbiting the planet, controlling it. So yeah, it's not great.
Yeah. So one of the wardens of this planet, I mean, I'm assuming they have, the prison is broken up into provinces. It's because it's a planet-wide prison.
Yeah.
So one of the provincial wardens on Macatian 3. Macatian 3. Thank you.
Yep.
That I scooted over in my brain. Boop. Macatian 3 was the province. He was thinking that the prisoners had built a way to transmit to the computer. So he's like freaking out. And he sends a bunch of technicians to investigate.
We're going to bust in. Everyone's cells getting searched the fuck up. Stand against the wall. They start tearing everything up.
Right. They discover Holtzman's transmission. And, this has been, almost 3,000 years, or over 3,000 years at this point.
Yep.
So language has evolved.
No.
Yeah, thankfully, language has evolved a little bit. So the message was deemed to be in an archaic form of speech of the Great Dark Ages.
Yep.
Thankfully, someone was able to translate it, and it's still understood. But
the technicians thought it was a joke at first because they're like, "Who the fuck speaks like this?"
Yeah, right.
I mean, it would literally be like taking someone from ancient Greece today and just like dropping them in and just be like, "What's up?"
Yeah, we're like, I don't know what you're saying, man. It's all Greek to me. And he goes, exactly.
But yeah, they originally thought it was a joke, and then there was a historian, and I don't know if the encyclopedia gives a name for the historian. They give a name for another person we're going to talk about in a second. But a historian recognized the speech patterns and confirmed that, hey, this message is legit. Like, this isn't just a joke. The prisoners aren't fucking with you. There's something here that we've clearly been missing. Let's pay attention to what's going on.
No name given for the historian.
But we do get a name for a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
Stiven. I think it's Staivan. So I'm going to say Stiven.
Good enough for me. Yep.
Stiven, with Holtzman's knowledge that he, dumps on everyone here, creates the first node for the planar effect, this theoretical wave mechanic.
Yep.
Which is our first time that we see the defensive shields that we've seen in the movies and the TV show and in the books.
Yep.
This slow blade penetrates the shield.
You can thank Holtzman for the shield.
Yeah. In fact, we get an understanding of the slow blade penetrating the shield because Stiven accidentally bumps a screwdriver off of his desk onto this planar shield, and he watches it, fall from normal gravity, hit the shield, and then just slowly descend through the shield.
Yeah.
And then once it passes through, go back at normal speed.
Yep.
So this gives Stiven an idea to start testing around with other different kind of interactions with this shield. And he's testing, other weapons. He's testing guns. And then he takes a mining laser to it. Zach, I don't know if you know this, but if you take a concentrated light source and you point it at one of these shields, it's not a good reaction.
No, it's really not.
In fact, we're actually given the payload amount of the explosion when this happens. It's a point. It's the encyclopedia gives us a really large number with a fake measurement, and then a immediate conversion to something we can understand as a 0.1 kiloton nuclear reaction.
Yep, exactly. So
not a huge bomb, but enough to fuck your shit up.
If I could read directly from the encyclopedia about this.
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Stavian did not realize what he had, though, until he accidentally dropped a screwdriver into the field and saw it gently lower through the plane of the effect. Stavian reported that whatever these messages were, they were no hoax. So he confirmed the legitimacy of the messages from Holtzman. He later took the field apparatus into the courtyard to test its resistance against a variety of missiles of increasing power, and at last, a workman's cutting laser.
Just a variety of missiles.
Yeah. What a sentence. Thus, as his last discovery, he learned that the planar effect did not mix well with coherent light. This author is cheeky as fuck, by the way.
Yeah.
And I love it.
As his last discovery. But yeah, Holtzman's third return, we get Holtzman shields.
Yep. So first return, we get the Holtzman wave, interstellar communications.
Yep. Second return, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, nothing on the second return because he was like, y'all got enough going on. I'm not going to get in the mix. Third return, we get shields based on his prior research. So it's all basically the same technology that we've gotten so far, just different versions of it, different applications. So again, we have a whole technical section that we're going to get to in a little bit where we'll talk about this in detail.
Yep. One thing that's worth pointing out here is that Holtzman, on his way out, unlike his second return, he does an Irish exit. He stops and says goodbye to everyone in a metaphorical sense, where he basically says, hey, I will return in the next millennium. Here's another just massive data dump. Peace out.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll return in the next millennium because of the timing. It's 3832, so the 1800 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And by this time, they figured out, they were able to pinpoint exactly when he was going to come back. So they knew a date.
Yeah.
For his fourth return. So off he goes into his erratic 1,862-year orbit. And when he gets back, it's the 70s, baby.
Hey.
The 1970s. The 1970s BG.
Oh. Damn it.
Yeah. So
You think Holtzman would have liked disco?
Probably not. He was a computer.
Yeah, but like he was also kind of a little bit of a playboy.
I guess he could have.
But also a nerd.
Who's to say, man?
Holtzman was probably a big like prog rock dude. A lot of Genesis, a lot of Rush, a lot of Yes.
That's just you.
Yeah.
That's what you like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he'd be into like future EDM. Who knows? So on his fourth return, The wars are still going on. The reunification wars.
The second reunification
Yes.
wars.
It's so nice. They did it twice. But because they knew that he was coming back, they were kind of anticipating this. Both sides were like, okay, we can set aside our differences for about a 2-month time span. And we're just going to let Holtzman do his thing while he's here. Then we can go back to the war if we need to.
For reference, we're recording this the first weekend in January, so Christmas has just passed. I think it's fair to say that Holtzman is Dune Santa.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair. Yeah.
Here's knowledge.
Yeah. So on his fourth return, he drops his unified effect theory. So interstellar communication, Holtzman waves, the planar effects is a Holtzman wave in 2 dimensions. Now he's given us the third, and he's found a way to tie all this stuff together in a nice little bow and say, hey, it's all related. Here's the math equation.
Here is a single file for you to just do whatever you need to do with this.
Yep, exactly. He wasn't quite done with it. Like he gave him the unified theory, and he's like, this is pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm not completely done, so I'm not going to give you the last little bit. But
this is a second draft, but I've done the calculations and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So he found a way to wrap all this stuff up, and what the third wave, or this third like data dump that he gives is interstellar travel. Yep. So this is the secrets to how the guild build their ships.
Kind of.
Yeah, it leads to that. It's very influential in that. Yeah.
This is the ground roots for what will become folding space.
Yeah.
Whether done by thinking machines or by weird fishmen.
Yeah, exactly.
There is something important about Holtzman's fourth return that I want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Holtzman himself. At this point, he's made 4 trips, and the first 2 were a little contentious. The third one was very peaceful. Holtzman just got to, be a nerd and say things to people with, all of his theories. This time, Holtzman is significantly less paranoid than before. So much so that he is kind of talking casually about who he is and what his true nature is. And he reveals that he is a machine overlaid with the mind of a man, yet he does not feel like a machine. So they know, like, hey, this is a weird, like, man-machine thing. This isn't just some random AI that's just floating around in space.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying that Holtzman is completely no longer psychotic or paranoid, because he immediately then says, oh, also, I've armed my ship with lasers. Don't approach me. Don't even try.
Well, lasers pointed at a planar field, at a defense shield. So he's basically said, I have an atomic bomb.
I have a nuke on me.
Yeah.
Try me, bitch.
Don't mess with me. Do not try to board the ship. I've got this thing on a hair trigger.
Even when I'm powered down, it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Does not tell them the exact like path of his orbit.
Yeah.
When he's doing this.
But he does just say, hey, I'll be back again in 1862 years.
Yep. I'm going to wrap this all up. And by the next time I come back around, we'll have all this science stuff figured out.
They promise to, quote, finish this thing up first thing next time.
Yep. All right. Well, and then we get to his fifth and final return, and it's a happy ending, isn't it?
It's the best ending. It is 108 BG. Zach, what happens in 108 BG?
That date seems a little familiar to me. We're getting mighty close to that 0 BG date. I think there was this little thing called the Butlerian Jihad that was happening around this time.
I don't know. I've heard of something called the Machine Wars.
Go to hell.
HBO, you cowards. Just call it the fucking Butlerian Jihad. I hate that shit so much. God damn it.
All right. We'll have time for your rant later.
Yeah. Oh, there's going to be a lot of that.
So, yeah, the next time that he comes around, he is smack dab at the tail end of the Butlerian Jihad.
Yep.
And by this time, all thinking machines have been eradicated. So every AI that existed, and they fought these wars against them, whether they're metaphorical wars or quite literal robot wars, however you want to interpret it.
Whoever is writing the book at that time,
they've pretty much all gotten eradicated, and Holtzman is the last known thinking machine to exist. So kind of a big deal for the Butlerians.
So much so that they all treat this like it's a football game or like some kind of big event, because effectively they all take a pilgrimage to the Liesco system to hang out, waiting for Holtzman to show up.
Yeah. He doesn't know this has happened. He doesn't know he's about to get ambushed.
No, homie's just been taking a nap for the last 1800 years. He's just like, oh shit. All right. I got some work to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I take a nap for over 2 hours, I wake up and don't know what day it is or what's going on.
Oh, did I tell you about the nap that I took the other day where I just like was asleep on this couch and woke up with my head like buried in my pillows? No. And it was one of those naps that was so good where like the pillows, so like I have these corduroy-ish textured pillows, and I had just like this print of corduroy on the side of my face. A little bit of drool action going on. Like it was one of those naps.
Well, the nap took you. You didn't take the nap.
Yeah.
The nap took you.
Yeah. That must be how all of Holtzman naps are like.
I'm going to refer to them as that now. A real good nap. We're taking a Holtzman nap. Yep. So the fleet's just waiting for it. The Butlerian fleet is just waiting for him to return. It takes a couple days of intense search to find him, but they eventually
3 days.
3 days of intense search. They eventually find his ship, and
then they argue about who gets to destroy him.
Yeah. The honors go to Viana Kellis, who I'm pretty sure is a character that's just made up for this article.
Yep.
But Viana Kellis won the chance to sacrifice herself by killing Holtzman. She infiltrated the ship, triggering the atomic booby trap. And Holtzman is no more after this.
God damn it.
Rest in peace to a real one.
The realest one, honestly.
And we never got to figure out what he was working on.
Yeah.
He never got a chance to share that last little bit.
His final theory remains unknown.
Yeah. So needless to say, Holtzman is one of the biggest contributors to the advancement of humanity. You could argue that Leto too did more. Who knows? But
I don't know though, because without Holtzman, everyone's stuck in Dune, but everyone's more stuck in Dune.
Well, without Holtzman, Leto 2's cart that he's wheeled around on, or not wheeled, pushed around on, wouldn't work. So.
Fat ass.
So, that's an unceremonious end to this character in the universe, and we're sad to see him go. Honestly, he had a good run.
Those fucking Butlerians, dude.
They quite literally fuck everything up.
Yeah. God damn it.
All right, cool.
Well, we're going to have a lot more to say about the Butlerians later on this month.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to talk about Holtzman's legacy. We've talked a lot about the importance of everything, but specifically like the Holtzman effect, right? Because there's 4 main, I guess, types of the Holtzman effect.
Yeah. And they're all related to each other.
Right. Not unlike you have, one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional, four-dimensional space.
Mhm.
This is effectively what Holtzman does with point source nodes, Holtzman waves, defensive shields, and suspensor nullification fields.
Yep. And it all starts with this thing called a point source node.
Yep.
Which I've read through this article about 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah.
This is the only part that I don't understand.
This shit makes me feel dumb.
Pause just to celebrate the level of nerddom that went into this Dune encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Because all of this is made up. It's rooted in pseudoscience, I would say, at best.
I would say it's rooted in theoretical physics.
Sure. Pseudo-theoretical physics.
Sure.
So it all starts from this thing called a point source node. And we're going to talk about this. I don't think we can shed a whole lot of light onto some of this because it's gobbledygook in my mind. But this is what the encyclopedia says that is the foundation for the Holtzman effect. They are invisible yet localized nodes. They act as seeds for higher dimensions, the higher dimensional effects, and they technically don't exist. You can manipulate them and you can, add energy to them, but they technically do not exist.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me flip this page. I think it would be okay if I just read straight from the encyclopedia just to illustrate it. Cause like those notes that you wrote are very good. It covers the most of it. I just wanted to say, I just wanted to illustrate, exactly what we're reading from. And this is the source material that we're going off of here. Point source Holtzman effect nodes, which have no physical existence, but do occupy definite locations. In parentheses, this incarnation of the Holtzman effect was theoretically explained very late in the development of the Holtzman effect, in the development of Holtzman effect devices and theory, though it has been used without being understood since the discovery of suspensor nullification effect. So this is something that we all, or the scientists of this age, knew about, or they knew the effects of this. They didn't know exactly what caused it, but they knew how to manipulate it in certain ways. And just kind of it works because it works situation.
Don't fucking mess with it.
Yeah.
It just works.
Don't think about it too hard. Just accept it. It works.
It's like trying to explain a smartphone to your parents.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's kind of how we operate with the notions of gravity right now. Like we know how it is and we know what it does, but we don't, there's a point where we can't really explain it any further. There's still some unknowns in that.
Yeah. God, now you got me thinking about this video that I watched the other day about the science and like calculations of gravity behind Interstellar.
Oh, sure.
And
sure.
Like I was watching this thing about how there's like space between dimensions where like gravity fucks with distance. And I'm just like, I would like to think that I have some degree of understanding of higher levels of physics like this.
Mm-hmm.
But watching that video and reading stuff about point source nodes with Holtzman, I'm just like, I'm fucking stupid.
Well, you can rest easy. All of this is made up.
I know.
But it's still fun to think about. So if you can just accept that point source nodes are a thing that exist, technically they don't, but
they exist, but they don't. Schrodinger's point node.
Yeah, right. We can quickly move on into the application of said point source nodes.
And this is where it makes more sense.
Yes. Weirdly enough, it starts to make more sense here.
And we're going to be one-dimensional here,
Mm-hmm.
talking about Holtzman waves. As we've talked about a few times already, this is what allows FTL communication. Waves fold space and time along a vector to create these super long radio transmissions that can go on effectively and infinitely, but need about a 250 light year rebroadcast period.
Yeah.
So I guess to equate that to something a little more practical in our lives, Ethernet cables are only so good for so long. Power over Ethernet is only good for so long. However, you can get a power injector to extend the length of that cable if you need to.
Yeah. I mean, same idea for like a Wi-Fi repeater.
Yeah.
That at least has some kind of like grounded analogy in our modern world.
Not these hypothetical exist but don't exist points in space that you can manipulate.
Well, that's so the way that I understood it is a scientist would take a device that holds a point source node, possibly.
Maybe.
It is being held in place, not really, by lasers.
Kind of.
And if you pump enough energy into this, you can direct the energy output from this node that doesn't technically exist into a specific direction, a vector. And as the wave, which is not really a wave, goes out, it does it folds space in such a way where the distance doesn't matter.
Right.
Up to a point. The distance doesn't matter. Now, on the other end of that Holtzman wave, again, not really a wave, there has to be some way of receiving the information. And that is where planet to planet communication becomes a lot easier, because the more mass that you aim this vector in, the higher likelihood of receiving the information becomes.
Yep. Which is why Holtzman pointed a lot of his mocking directly at the planetary mass of Liesco 2.
Yeah. So that's all fine and good. So planet to planet communication, great, cool, got it, we done.
Yeah.
Now, what if you wanted to communicate with a ship that is flying, a much, much, much smaller in mass object? That's where it gets really, really tricky. So ships are moving throughout space. You can't just move the wave in the same direction as the ship, because that's that's not how aiming works. So ships were commonly they would have like certain known static locations where they would stop and receive communications from various planets.
Yeah.
The post office. They had space post office, John. I love it.
Oh,
it really, I mean, this, you said the Pony Express example earlier. This truly is a futuristic version of the Pony Express.
Yeah. Stop. How are you doing today? Stop.
The encyclopedia does mention that if you're trying to communicate with distances over 250 light years, they would have like repeater stations.
Yeah.
To extend that range, which is just how a lot of towns were established in the west of the United States in history, because that's about as far as you could ride a horse in one day.
Yep.
So one-dimensional Holtzman effect, the waves, which again are not technically waves, and they don't technically exist, I guess.
Maybe
you can manipulate them.
Yeah. But also you can't.
Yeah. All right. So let's get on to the two-dimensional waves, the defensive shields.
Yeah.
We know them. We love them. Super useful. Let's talk about how they work.
And a slow blade definitely always penetrates it. Not ever a fast blade.
Nope.
Nope.
Never, ever, ever. So the definition, as from the encyclopedia, says the two-dimensional or planar incarnations of the Holtzman effect, which have achieved widespread notoriety as the common defensive shield. That's the definition that the encyclopedia gives.
Yep. Shields do emit and reflect certain wavelengths, they emit and reflect certain wavelengths, making them adaptable for various use. from security to cosmetics to, effectively whatever you want to. However, as we've talked about earlier, any coherent energy like lasers destabilizes the shit out of them.
Yeah.
So don't shoot lasers at shields.
So I'm gonna do my best to sum up what the encyclopedia says about shields. This is one where it gives a lot of fake science. It goes so far as to say stuff like pseudo atoms, which I don't believe are a thing. So, one second.
Pseudo atoms.
Yeah. So, without getting into a lot of the hand wavy parts of this, I'm going to get into just some of the hand wavy parts.
Okay.
So you take the Holtzman wave that we all know and love and does not exist.
Yep.
And if you pump enough energy into this, you can take this into a higher dimensional state.
In this case, second dimension.
Second dimensional.
Yeah.
So what this does is it causes a fuck, how do I even explain this? God, I feel like I'm insane right now. It consists of the electromagnetic forces of atomic bonds. However, these bonding forces have been polarized.
Okay.
In one direction, or the outside edge of the effect, the forces have been subverted to only act on pseudo-atoms of incoherent matter. Which is a very fun sentence to think about. And
for clarification,
yes.
Coherent matter is defined.
Yes.
Which they call like rays or beams of light.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Incoherent matter, and it can revert with disastrous consequences in the presence of coherent energy, beams of light, lasers, et cetera, et cetera. On the opposite side of the plane, the forces have been shifted so that they repel normal matter above a certain critical density, ranging from 0.06 to 0.35 grams per cubic centimeter.
Okay.
Pseudomatter, though it does not exist, cannot be manifest in real space-time, so the only effects of the defensive shield are the effects of the bonding force. The result of the strange half-existence of the planar effect is that normal matter can pass through the planar effect region, but only slowly. In addition, the planar effect is reflective of the outer surface to certain wavelengths of the electromagnetic spectrum. And their reflexivity is determined by the manufacturer of the shield and cannot be altered once the point source node for that field has been constructed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We all know this.
Everyone learns this in school.
I don't mean to, talk down to our listeners. They all know this.
All you need to know is the slow blade, and only the slow blade penetrates the shield.
What I think is a cool thing to take away from that is, so you can adjust these fields depending on the amount of energy that you put into them. You can adjust how quickly things move in and out, to the point where nothing moves in and out, and that's not good because whoever is wearing it would die.
Because you can't breathe.
Yeah. To the point where it's things just kind of pass through relatively freely.
Yeah.
Slower, but relatively freely. The wavelengths thing I think is pretty interesting. It's not something that we see in the movies at all.
Yeah.
They don't talk about that characteristic of the shields at all. So the encyclopedia goes on to talk about, you mentioned artists and cosmetics and things like that. So wide variety of different, applications for this. One that I thought was pretty interesting was prisoner transport.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets to a point where you can block all wavelengths of light that come through the shield. So effectively, the person inside would not be able to see anything around them.
Yeah, they're just in a floating black box.
Yeah, exactly. So shields, they're shields technically. That's defense shield is kind of the widest use for them, but there's a bunch of different applications for it. One last thing on shields, and then we'll move on to the higher dimensional stuff, the third dimension.
Because sure, let's just go ahead and fuck our brains entirely at this point.
Yeah, well, why not?
In for a penny, in for a pound, I suppose.
Yep. So when if you are inside of a shield, so the encyclopedia describes shields as wanting to naturally take a globular shape.
A blob.
Yeah, it wants to be kind of in this like spherical blobby shape.
Yeah.
But when you have something inside of that sphere, you can push it outwards. You can extend the field. It becomes incredibly malleable to forces inside the sphere.
It kind of reminds me, I don't know if you've ever seen a video of astronauts on the ISS taking water and like, it's a pretty famous video. I think it's astronaut Chris Hadfield, where he takes water on like a rag and shows like water's surface tension on the rag. Even though there's no gravity, the surface tension still causes it to cling to a towel.
Yeah.
Kind of that idea.
Yeah, I think that's
because
fair.
like as he's shifting it around, the surface tension of that water is still keeping it stuck to that towel.
Yeah. I think that's, this may be rooted in some very flimsy application of that kind of science.
Yeah. That's the way that it kind of stuck in my head.
Yeah.
When I was reading over all this stuff, but also
it's all made up.
You read it 6 times and your brain's just like, huh?
So if you create if you create this Holtzman wave in 2 dimensions, it creates the little globule shape of the sphere. If you do that around a person's body, and basically stretch it to the confines of the person's body, it will attach and just become a 3-dimensional shell for that person.
Or if you're watching the 1984 version of Dune, Minecraft people.
Yeah, blocks that extend about a foot away from your body. So that's pretty fun. So that's why, you're able to move around while these shields are happening, because they are malleable. This force field, if you want to call it that, is a malleable thing that you can move around with. Mm-hmm. The encyclopedia goes to length as to say, if you were to expand the field to where it is actually like there's distance between you, like your body, and the edge or the inside edge of the shield, so you're kind of existing in the bubble.
Yeah.
It is a very, very bad idea if you were to fire a missile out from that.
No.
Yes. Because at that point, if there's enough energy that hits the inside of a shield at one time, it will reverse polarization.
Yep.
And because these things emit, some form of radiation, usually long wave radiation, all of that will be concentrated back on you, and you will cook alive.
Yeah, it's not good.
Don't do that.
Slow in, slow out.
Yes.
Better yet, slow in, off, then out.
Yeah.
Which is why, spoilers for season 2 of the Dune Minute, but that's why you see the Harkonnen ornithopters disable their shields as they're firing their guns and then re-enable their shields.
Okay, yeah.
And we'll talk a lot more about that in what I believe is minute 60 something.
Okay. I don't know. I have not watched Dune Part 2 in a very long time, so I'll be coming in with fresh eyes.
All right.
So that's
sorry to spoil that one tiny thing for you for a movie that came out that you and I went to
I've
go
seen
see
it
several
I've seen
times.
It. Yes. All right. There's a lot more on the second dimension Holtzman effect. Is by far the widest application of the of Holtzman's discoveries. Highly encourage you to read the full article on it in the encyclopedia, because there's a lot of stuff that we did not touch on here, but those are the highlights. And let's talk about third dimension now.
Suspensor nullification fields.
Yeah. I think we are due a history lesson at this point, really, to fully understand this.
I mean, all right. So we're going to go back a long way.
Yeah.
To a very specific date, 13,004 BG. Not just 13,000, 13,004 BG. Suspensor nullification was initially misattributed to resonance effects from laser mechanics. Its first practical application enabled interstellar travel but the understanding around suspensor nullification and everything was incredibly limited, and interstellar travel, it was a dice roll. You know, you were taking a serious risk doing this, which is what led to the Great Dark Ages. Eventually, the risk so far outweighed the potential benefits that humanity just stopped trying.
Yeah. I feel like this is something that we'll talk a lot more about in an upcoming summer school episode.
Yep.
So we can save it a little bit for that. But yeah, the suspensor nullification allows that interstellar travel, like you said. And if you were to combine these with a second degree, second dimension, interstellar, or second degree Holtzman wave. So you have a third degree kind of operating with inside of a second degree, if that makes sense, right? So okay, cool.
Holtzman's within Holtzman's.
Yes, exactly.
Our plans are measured in Holtzman.
This is what allows the suspensors that we see in Dune. So those things that are on the Baron's back.
Yep.
Duncan's suspensor belt. Yeah. It allows you
the
to
platform that holds Leto's the second's fat ass.
Yeah, exactly. So
and he's thick.
It's the combination of that allows the personal suspensors to work.
Yeah. We saw them most recently in Dune Prophecy with the jail.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Quote unquote jail.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that technology has been known for a very, very long time, and it's kind of like the highest application of the science. But we've known about it for tens of thousands of years before Holtzman came around and was like, there's more to this. We can pick this apart more.
Let me think.
Yeah.
In fact, all I want to do is think, fuck all y'all, I'm leaving.
Yep, exactly.
Suspensor nullification enabled interstellar travel, though, by entering the void outside of normal space-time, which we, in our current world, know as wormholes. In Dune, and I guess in our current world, it's folding space, which is the correct, way of describing it.
Yep.
So,
yep.
The best way to visualize it is take a piece of paper, put 2 points on either end of the piece of paper, bring those 2 points together.
Yeah.
So you're not traveling the full length of the paper.
Yep, exactly. I know we've talked at length about our feelings about Dune Prophecy. The high watermark of that show, or at least one of them, was the space folding in the last episode.
Just watching that fucking highliner come out of nothing.
Yeah. Wonderfully visualized there. So
that saved that last episode for me.
Do what?
What?
What'd you say?
What?
I didn't hear what you said.
I said it's the thing that saved that last episode for me.
Okay. Cool. Well, that is Holtzman's contributions to science in a nutshell, a very large nutshell. There's a lot more information that is available in the encyclopedia. So if this, scratched an itch or, made you curious about what Holtzman has done, I highly recommend reading some of the finer points because they are definitely fine detailed.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to it as well. Like there are some theoretical challenges to the limits of Holtzman's effects and stuff. For instance, you can't really shield an entire planet. The stability for Guild Highliners in the future, but we'll talk a lot more about Guild Highliners when we talk about the Guild itself. There are some questions around what happens to the human mind when you're folding space. So there's still a lot of things that, we will talk about later on. But
I'm glad we did Holtzman first here because it's foundational to a lot of other stuff.
Yeah. And I think, doing anything other than Holtzman first for summer school would be a disservice to the rest of the episodes as well.
We'd have to be, tripping over ourselves and going back and explaining stuff. So yeah, it's a good foundation.
And even still, like you and I have both said, we've tried to wrap our brain around as much of the weird theoretical, sci-fi here as possible. And it's still, there are still questions that you and I probably have about some of these things.
100,000,000%. Yes.
The point in all of this is that Holtzman's a fucking G.
The Butlerians did him dirty.
Yep.
We could have had so much more.
You know who else did Holtzman dirty, Zach?
Okay. I have a sneaking suspicion you're going to say Brian Herbert.
Brian fucking Herbert.
Okay. It is now time.
It's now time for me to be mad.
All right. I've held him off as long as I could. All right, John, I'm going to give you 7 minutes. Go.
That's it? Okay, fuck. All right, so everything that we just talked about, fuck all that.
Yep.
Brian Herbert, in his ineffable wisdom. And okay, so first thing, I want to address some feedback that we've gotten from some listeners asking why we dog on Brian so hard. And I think what Brian did to Holtzman is one of the things that makes me want to dog on him as hard as possible because Brian had all of this fantastic stuff from the Dune Encyclopedia, this really like interesting story, and then just said, nah, I'm going to make a new character. His name's going to be T.O. Holtzman, which I can't think of as anything other than Uncle Holtzman because...
See.
And he's just like, he's still a really smart dude. But I'm going to make him kind of like Tony Starkish, more like playboyish, whatever, still really smart, but he's only going to live like 30 years and still come up with all this stuff.
Yeah.
But also do it with the help of another scientist, by the name of Norma Senva, who is a mathematician from Rossick, who really did a lot of the heavy lifting. This is definitely a Edison and Tesla moment here.
We will talk about Senva a lot more when we talk about the Spacing Guild.
Yeah. Holtzman got done dirty hard by Brian Herbert. And I think one of the most compelling things about Holtzman's character is the fact that he is a man that was super intelligent, super smart, got in this huge accident, had his brain put into a computer, was maybe not the first, but I would say the first thinking machine.
The first brain transplant into a thinking machine as far as the encyclopedia is concerned.
Like he is the ultimate thinking machine. You can argue that against, Omnius or whatever. But I would call him the ultimate thinking machine. And like having this character that shows up every 1800 and some years and then just like drops all this knowledge and then pieces like that's such a cool and compelling thing. And then you just have T.O. Holtzman that's just like, I figured this shit out, I guess.
Yeah, I won't say it like, well, I will say this. It robs some of the wonder out of it.
Also, like another thing too is in Brian's canon, Holtzman's just an Ixian.
Yeah.
Which goes back to one of my other arguments against, how prophecy kind of handled Dune, where like there are more planets than just Ix and Gedi Prime and Seleucus Secundus and Wallach 9.
It makes the universe smaller.
Right.
Yeah.
Having Liesco 2 be its own super important planet for being the birthplace of Holtzman and all this shit gives it more, of a scale to the universe. Having Holtzman reach out to the 6 nearest star systems begging for
help.
not really begging, but bartering in under duress for help helps make this universe bigger. And then if Holtzman's just an Ixian, it's like, all right, fucking.
Yeah. I would encourage people to go read the entry on T.O. Holtzman from the Dune Wiki. If you want to have a fairly short read about his contributions to the universe. What John said is absolutely right. He's just a dude that lived, or dude from Ix, and made the discoveries. And not a lot is known about him other than that. So it's, I don't know. If we're comparing stories, the encyclopedia definitely gives a more compelling story to this character.
It's just the dumbing down and simplification of Holtzman's story that really is upsetting.
Yeah.
Brian did him dirty, and I fucking hate that. Yeah. So, come at me all you want in the comments or whatever, but I will hold firm on my.
I will forward all of those emails to you.
We share the inbox.
I won't look at them then.
One thing that I did forget to talk about, and I am incredibly upset with myself for forgetting to talk about this, is another effect that Holtzman gave us. Another very important thing that Holtzman gave us. You know what that is? Mother.
Why don't you shed some light?
Fucking glow globes, baby. Without the Holtzman effects, we would not have glow globes.
It's true. They would not be the hard workers that they are. Just
all those little bacteria just fucking making light.
Yep, that's right. Or just floating around in the background, doing their jobs, doing it to the fullest extent, and the unsung heroes of the Dune universe.
Glow globes and heart mollusks. And sligs and chair dogs.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to those.
But we haven't seen those yet.
As a side note, we just picked up a copy of the sci-fi miniseries on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And I think both of us have spent some time going through that. They have a much different interpretation of glow globes, especially in the Sieges in that series.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that? Organic glow globes.
I mean, glow globes are organic. They are bacteria. So
theirs is like a tumbleweed that you shake.
Yeah, no, I know.
You got to shake it, and it's like
they're
glow
they're
stick.
definitely more globish. They're not as Holtzman suspensory or suspendery.
Yeah,
but
I thought it was a very interesting and cool interpretation. I think it fits really, really well with the overall Fremen aesthetic.
Sure,
that they've got going on in that series. So I enjoyed them.
I still think Denis glow globes are
sure they're better,
the best ones. But
yeah, no doubt. But no, I really enjoyed the glow globes from the sci-fi miniseries.
Which, by the way, if you can get the Blu-ray for it, it's way better than watching it in the 240p that it is on YouTube.
Yeah. Ooh, all right, man. I'm looking at the clock, and we are an hour and a half into this record. So what do you say we end class for the day? And we can pick back up at our next session.
Whenever that will be.
Yep. We are playing this kind of fast and loose with the release dates. We're going to try for the 15th and the last day of the month. Over the next couple of months. So we'll have 2 of these episodes coming your way for January, February, and March. We'll just keep an eye out for socials. We'll try to get as much heads up as possible before the releases, so we can just inform everyone they can be ready for it. We don't want to be like our own Holtzmans and just randomly show up and dropping information on you. We're going to give you a little bit of a heads
every
up.
1,800 years.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, you want to take us out with some socials?
Of course. Talked about it a little bit today as well. Our next episode will be the Butlerian Jihad. Very much looking forward to that. And then next month we have some other summer schools planned with some summer school guests. Pretty excited.
Yeah, guest lecturers.
Yeah. But as always, we are available online in many places. We are most active on Blue Sky. You can find us there at duneminute.com. We are on Instagram at the Dune Minute. And you can email duneminute@gmail.com if you'd like to get in touch with us directly. I don't apologize for what I said about Brian Herbert.
Okay. Your 7 minutes are up. All right, cool. We will see y'all later.
All right. See ya.